Are you ready for the evolving landscape of document authentication? Step into tomorrow with The Future Notary by Derrick Spruill. This forward-looking book prepares you for the transformative world of remote online notarization and e-notary. Embrace the future because your future starts now. Grab your copy of The Future Notary by Derrick Spruill on Amazon today.
So, picture this scenario, right?
Yeah.
You're sitting at a dining room table in a totally stranger's home. The air is super tense.
Oh, yeah. We have absolutely all felt that specific tension.
Right. And the person sitting across from you slides this dense, 10-page legal contract across the table. It needs your official seal. But the catch here is, and this is a big one, the entire document is written in a language you literally cannot read.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah.
But your gut reaction is probably just to, verify their ID, watch them sign the paper, and stamp your certificate.
Exactly, because you're just verifying the signature, right?
Yeah.
But fast forward maybe 6 months, you open your mail, and boom, there's a subpoena. You are being sued for $150,000.
Just a total nightmare scenario.
It turns out that specific document contained a hidden, completely fraudulent clause that transferred ownership of a family estate. And the plaintiffs, they are arguing that your official seal basically facilitated the fraud.
And suddenly your entire business, your life savings, your reputation, it's all on the line because of one single signature you witnessed on a random Tuesday afternoon.
That is the terrifying reality of operating in this modern era of notarization if you don't have, a flawless defensive strategy. Welcome to Notary Knowledge. We are Eddie and Marylyn.
And we are officially celebrating our 500th broadcast today.
500. That is just incredible. Welcome, everyone.
It really is. When you step back and contextualize the sheer volume of, legal theory and operational strategy we've covered, not to mention the tech analysis, it is honestly staggering.
I really want you, the listener, to just take a second right now and genuinely enjoy this milestone with us. Whether you're driving between your appointments or you're organizing your home office, you are a massive part of this.
500 broadcasts.
Yeah. We have poured thousands of hours into researching state statutes, testing new software stacks, and analyzing these market trends to deliver this free educational content to the whole notary community. Because our goal has always been to protect the public trust.
And honestly, the most fulfilling part of this entire endeavor is seeing the tangible results out there in the field. Talking about statutory compliance in a studio is one thing, right?
Oh, for sure.
But watching a listener actually apply those principles to fundamentally change their livelihood, that is the real reward.
Look at Omar in Michigan, for example. Omar's trajectory is the perfect case study for this whole journey we've been on.
Shouting out Omar today.
Absolutely. When he first started tuning in, he was just trying to figure out how to transition from doing, a couple of casual local signings a month to building something real. And he listened, but more importantly, he executed.
Right. He put in the actual work.
He did. By consistently applying the strategies we talk about, he scaled his entire operation. He is now taking on complex commercial work, navigating brutal compliance hurdles, and operating with just surgical precision. So shout out to you, Omar. You transformed your business model.
Omar really embodies that persona we are always talking about, the savvy strategist. And that is the core purpose of this show. We are here to bridge that massive gap between dry, complex legal theory and real-world execution.
It's true.
The whole mission is to transition you from being a localized, paper-heavy administrator into a tech-driven national enterprise CEO.
So how does a modern notary actually survive that transition into a highly regulated digital landscape? That's the central question we are tackling today.
That's a huge topic.
It is. We're going to look at the new tech tools eliminating administrative liability. We'll explore the mechanics of high liability operations like that foreign language document nightmare I mentioned.
Right, which happens way more than people think.
Oh, constantly. Plus, we will dissect the terrifying legal paradox of scaling an agency, specifically the W-2 versus 1099 labor classification minefield. And finally, we'll chart course to highly profitable revenue with our money-making Monday strategies.
Focusing entirely on dominating the legacy niche, of course.
Exactly. But before we get into all those operational mechanics, you have to build your foundation.
You absolutely do. The strategies we're discussing today, they require a solid bedrock of knowledge. I strongly encourage you to invest in your education by getting the Notary Knowledge books by Derrick Spruill and checking out the Notary Knowledge website. That really has to be your baseline.
Yeah, and to supplement that reading, you definitely need to check out our video broadcast, No Notary, with Eddie Montes Travis. You get a great visual breakdown of these complex concepts there.
And don't miss the microlearning segment, Marylyn's 90 Seconds of Notary.
Oh, that one is great.
It's designed to give you these rapid-fire compliance tips when you're literally sitting in your car right before an appointment.
Which is exactly where we need to start our analysis of this 2026 landscape, that educational foundation. I mean, if you look at the evolution of the industry, it's reflected perfectly in the recent brand refresh for Mobile Notary by Derrick Spruill.
Oh, it really is.
Yes.
And it's not just a cosmetic update, you know? It is a highly calculated psychological shift designed to immediately communicate authority.
I noticed that the second I saw it, they brought in this stark white typography set against a deep navy background, and then finished it off with this vibrant red bar.
It's striking.
It really is. Walk me through the psychology, though. Like, how does a logo actually change the way a client perceives your authority at a table?
Well, it's all about subconscious signaling, right? When you are transitioning into a national knowledge enterprise, every single visual touchpoint has to establish trust before you even speak a word to the client.
So the colors aren't just an accident?
Not at all. The deep navy blue is essentially the color of institutional stability. Think of banks, law enforcement, federal agencies. It tells the client, we understand the gravity of the law.
That makes a lot of sense. And the white text?
The stark white typography is deployed specifically for transparency. It visually cuts through dense, confusing legal jargon, signaling clarity and safety.
And then there's that red bar highlighting the phrase by Derrick Spruill.
Right, that red bar functions as a personal seal of guarantee. Red is urgent, it's active, it's vibrant, and it perfectly anchors their new official slogan, integrity in action.
I love that slogan.
It basically communicates that you aren't just dealing with a passive administrator who stamps paper, but a professional who actively executes ethical standards.
Integrity in action. Yeah, but you can't just project integrity with a logo, obviously. You have to back it up with real operational competence. Which brings us right back to the education aspect.
Exactly.
I really want to highlight Amanda in South Carolina today. She is actively using those notary knowledge books to build her foundation from the ground up.
She's doing it right.
She really is. She's basically treating the books like a structural blueprint for her whole business.
And Amanda's approach is exactly how that curriculum, which is published by Magnificent Workz Business Solutions, by the way, how it was designed to be used.
Right.
It's a really rigorous 8-book series that essentially maps out the operational mindset of a CEO over the course of a single week.
Let's break down why it's structured that way, because I find it fascinating. Sunday starts with the Notary Public Foundation. Why start the week there?
Because Sunday represents the genesis of your authority. I mean, you cannot build a business until you understand the strict ethical boundaries and the state-specific commissioning procedures of your role.
You have to know the rules before you play the game.
Exactly. You have to be grounded in your core duties before you even think about revenue.
Which leads perfectly into Monday, which is Notary Operational Excellence.
Right. Monday is execution. This book forces you to master the daily habits that prevent clerical errors, the certificates, the journals, managing your ink, copy certifications.
Because most lawsuits stem from sloppy Monday habits, right? Not grand conspiracies.
Oh, 100%. Then Tuesday shifts completely to defense with Notary Fraud Shield.
I actually think this might be the most critical day.
It really might be. It's one thing to know how to stamp a document, but it is another entirely fate to know how to identify undue influence.
Like, what do you actually do if a daughter is hovering over her elderly father at the signing table, answering every single question for him?
Yeah, that is exactly what Tuesday covers. It gives you the legal mechanisms to refuse a signing in that exact scenario without facing a massive discrimination lawsuit. You learn how to document the refusal properly so your decision is legally bulletproof.
That is so vital. Then Wednesday is the Mobile Notary Blueprint,
which is the logistics manual. Launching an on-demand business requires understanding routing, efficiency, client acquisition.
It's the mechanics of moving from point A to point B profitably.
Precisely, which sets up Thursday. Notary Niche Navigator.
And this is where the revenue actually comes from.
Yes. Thursday teaches you how to unlock high-yield income streams. You move way beyond basic acknowledgments and learn the specific protocols for loan signings, apostoles, and I-9 verifications.
Then Friday brings the heavy compliance stuff with notary law and liability. Navigating all those state regulations, managing your errors and omissions insurance, and crucially avoiding the unauthorized practice of law.
Such a critical Friday lesson.
Yeah.
I mean, if a signer asks you, hey, what does this clause mean for my taxes?
Mhm.
You actually answer them. You have just crossed into the unauthorized practice of law.
It's so easy to do if you weren't trained.
Exactly. Friday teaches you how to maintain your neutral ministerial role.
And Saturday is the future notary, focusing on remote online notarization, e-notary standards, the digital landscape, and finally, the capstone, the Notary Bible, the comprehensive reference guide that ties the entire week together.
The complete ecosystem.
It is. But what really surprised me is their multi-generational approach. They published the Little Notary Derrick children's book series. Why bring children's books into a highly technical legal field?
Well, it is a brilliant long-term strategy for the whole profession. The children's series uses that same vibrant red branding to teach kids about public trust, community service, and responsibility.
Oh, that's smart.
It bridges the gap between professional execution and family-oriented learning. It normalizes the concept of an impartial witness for the very next generation.
Now, as much as we're moving toward this elevated, tech-driven future, we cannot ignore the physical realities of the job. Because 2026 is bringing a severe logistical hurdle that could paralyze a business overnight.
The massive paper shortage.
Exactly.
This is where the transition from administrator to CEO is really tested. If your business model relies on printing 150-page loan packages every single day, a disruption in the paper supply chain is an existential threat. A savvy strategist does not wait for the shortage to hit the local office supply store.
So what's the actual play here? Do you just buy 100 boxes of paper and throw them in your garage?
Oh, that is the worst thing you could possibly do. Paper is incredibly sensitive to its environment. If you store reams of paper in a damp garage or, an uninsulated storage unit, the humidity will completely warp the fiber.
Which means printer jams.
Constant printer jams. When you try to run that compromised paper through a high-speed dual-tray laser printer, you will experience catastrophic failures right when you are rushing to a closing.
So you really need climate-controlled storage.
Precisely. You stockpile intelligently in a temperature-controlled environment, but simultaneously, you must aggressively accelerate your transition to digital and paperless workflows wherever it is legally permissible in your specific state.
You have to reduce your dependency on the physical medium entirely. Let's talk about another physical medium, actually. The notary's body.
Oh, yes.
I always say that a mobile notary's car is not just a vehicle, it is a mobile command center. You're spending hours behind the wheel, driving 100 miles a day, and then twisting your spine to type on a laptop balanced on your center console.
The biomechanical toll is just severe. We are seeing chronic injury become a massive vulnerability in this profession. If you are operating as a CEO, you have to treat your workstation, meaning your car, with the exact same ergonomic seriousness as a corporate office.
So what does that actually look like practically?
It starts with your spine. You must invest in proper lumbar support. When you're driving between rural properties and city offices, the constant vibration of the road combined with poor posture completely compresses the lower discs.
I feel that just listening to you.
Right. And secondly, you need to adjust your steering wheel height. If it is too high, your shoulders are constantly engaged and elevated, which leads to severe tension in the trapezius muscles.
And hydration. It sounds so basic, but when you are on the road all day, it is incredibly easy to forget to drink water.
Yes.
And it's not just about physical health, it is about cognitive focus. When you are staring at a dense legal text looking for a fraudulent date, dehydration directly impacts your visual acuity and your decision-making speed.
Which is exactly why we use technology to supplement that human focus.
Yeah.
Technology in 2026 isn't just about making things faster. It is actively eliminating administrative liability.
Help me understand that distinction, though. 10 years ago, tech for a notary was basically just a digital calendar and a GPS on your phone.
Exactly. It was purely logistical back then. But today, the technology is a compliance engine. It acts as a safety net for human error.
Right.
The perfect example is the OneScan, Notarial Certificate AR application.
Augmented reality at the signing table. It still sounds like science fiction to me. How does this actually work when I am sitting across from a signer?
Okay, imagine you are holding a physical paper document. You open the OneScan app on your mobile device and just hold the camera over the page. The application uses advanced computer vision algorithms to parse the legal text in real time.
Wow.
It projects a compliance layer directly onto the physical page that you can see through your screen.
So it is actually reading the document as I look at it. What is it looking for, specifically?
Well, its primary function is to identify blank spaces. The computer vision scans the structural formatting of all the paragraphs. If it detects an underlined blank area that hasn't been filled in, it highlights that space in bright red on your screen.
That is massive, because notarizing a document with blank spaces is a huge liability. A bad actor could easily take that document after you stamp it and write in a new interest rate, or add a secondary beneficiary.
Precisely. The AR acts as an immediate failsafe. But it actually goes further than that. It reads the specific verbiage of the notarial certificate at the bottom of the page, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it instantly analyzes the keywords and projects a warning, telling you definitively whether the document requires a jurat, meaning you have to administer an oath or an acknowledgement.
So it gives you real-time validation before your ink ever touches the paper.
Exactly, completely preventing the document from being rejected by a county recorder later.
That handles the front end so well. But what about the back end? The record keeping. We all know the absolute nightmare of storing physical paper journals.
That's awful.
Some states require you to hold onto them for 10 years. You are constantly worrying about fire, flood, theft, or just losing a book that contains thousands of highly sensitive signatures.
The transition to electronic journals is definitely the obvious solution, but it has historically faced a major technological hurdle regarding security and cost. Storing a journal on a local hard drive just isn't secure enough because it can be altered or backdated.
So the industry turned to the blockchain to make records immutable, but writing data to a public blockchain is incredibly expensive. Every time you log an entry, you have to pay a gas fee to the network.
Right.
If I do 20 notarizations a day, those fees would destroy my profit margins.
And this is where the engineering behind the one-ledger notary e-journal is just so brilliant. It solves the gas fee problem while maintaining perfect security by using a hybrid distributed ledger technology architecture combined with an authenticated bitwise tried data structure.
Okay, stop. You just completely lost me. Authenticated bitwise tried data structure. You have to break that down for me. Give me an analogy.
Fair enough. Think of it like
Yes.
sending physical mail. Imagine you have 1,000 separate letters you need to mail to headquarters. If you put stamps on all 1,000 individual envelopes, the postage costs will bankrupt you.
Sure.
That is what traditional blockchain recording is like, paying a fee for every single entry.
Okay, I follow that.
Well, the bitwise trie is essentially a mathematical ZIP file. Instead of mailing 1,000 separate letters, the software aggregates all 1,000 of your digital journal entries into one highly compressed, single cryptographic digest.
So it puts all the letters into one single sealed box?
Yes. The system then takes that one box, that single digest, and writes it to the public blockchain periodically, say, just once a day.
Oh, wow. So you only pay the postage, the gas fee once for the entire batch instead of 1,000 times.
Exactly. But because of the cryptography, the security remains flawless. It creates a tamper-evident 10-year record that is mathematically perfect.
That's incredible.
It gets better. If you were ever subpoenaed 3 years from now regarding a specific signing, you don't have to expose your entire journal. You can selectively disclose just the specific entry in question.
And the court will accept that.
Yes, because the cryptographic proof mathematically validates that it was part of that original sealed box and hasn't been altered. It provides absolute, irrefutable legal protection for the notary.
That is truly incredible tech. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll dive into what happens when technology can't save you from a foreign language document. We will be right back. Commercial break 1. All right, we are back. Before the break, we were talking about how technology mathematically perfects the record. But as much as we try to perfect the process with AR and blockchain out in the real world, things are rarely perfect.
That is the truth.
The tech can read the blank spaces, but what happens when the tech and the notary cannot read the language at all?
You are stepping right into one of the most perilous operational hazards in the entire industry, the foreign language minefield.
I laid out that scenario at the very beginning of the show, the $150,000 lawsuit over a foreign document. Let's really explore the mechanics of that risk. The tension here seems to be a fundamental contradiction in our duties.
It really is.
Right. On one hand, a notary has limited responsibility for the actual contents of the document. We are not attorneys. We don't validate the legal substance of a contract. But on the other hand, we have an absolute unyielding statutory duty to perform the notarial act correctly.
Yes.
So how do you reconcile that when you are staring at a document written entirely in Mandarin or Russian?
You reconcile it by returning to the absolute foundational rule of any valid notarization.
Yeah.
Direct, unassisted communication between the notary and the signer. This is non-negotiable.
Right.
You must be able to verify their identity through their credentials. You must be able to administer a verbal oath or take their acknowledgement. And
Yeah.
you must confirm that they are signing the document voluntarily without any coercion.
And if you don't speak the same language?
If you do not share a common language with the signer, that direct communication is broken, and the entire foundation of the notarial act collapses.
But people always ask me, why can't I just use the signer's bilingual daughter who is standing right there in the room to translate for me?
Because of the strict interpreter ban. Relying on a third party during the ceremony severely compromises the absolute impartiality required of the transaction.
It's just too risky.
Exactly. History is full of cases of coercion where a family member translates the notary's question, "Do you understand this document?" into the native language as, "Just nod your head and sign it, or I will put you in a home."
Wow. Yeah, you have absolutely no way of knowing if the translator is accurately relaying your oath or just manipulating the signer.
Not at all.
That makes perfect sense. The introduction of a third party introduces an unacceptable variable of fraud. But let's look at Chloe in Arizona.
Oh, this is a great example.
She is dealing with a situation where she has to verify an ID photo, but there is a severe language barrier with the signer. Based on the statutes, Arizona seems to be a total outlier here.
Arizona is entirely unique. From the jurisdictional sources we analyze, Arizona is the only state that explicitly allows a physically present interpreter to assist during the notarial ceremony.
But there are still strict guardrails in place, right?
Absolutely. The law mandates that both the translator and the signer must be physically present with you. You cannot just use a translator over speakerphone. Now, contrast Arizona's leniency with a state like Florida.
Florida is intense about this. Florida law explicitly states that you cannot take an acknowledgement from someone who does not speak English unless the nature and effect of the document are translated into a language they understand.
Right.
But, and this is the critical distinction, Florida generally prohibits the use of third-party interpreters to translate the actual notarial ceremony itself.
Which forces the notary into a very specific, careful workflow in Florida. The prudent move is to confirm with the signer, through the limited direct communication you can establish, that they already had the document translated beforehand by a professional.
Right, before they even get to the table.
Exactly. And that they fully understand the legal effect of what they are signing before you even begin the notarization process. Your direct communication is solely for executing the statutory requirements of the Notarial Act, not for translating the body of the legal document.
Okay, so let's say you manage to establish enough direct communication in English to satisfy the identity and willingness requirements. You now move to the document examination protocol.
Always.
You are holding a document where the body text is entirely in a foreign language. What are you actually looking for?
You must scan the document for the big three. Even if you cannot read the paragraphs, you can usually identify these elements. First, the signer's name. Can you visually locate and read the name of the person sitting in front of you within the text?
Usually, proper nouns are recognizable.
Right. Second, the document date. Is there a date written on the document? And more importantly, is it today's date or a past date?
And why is a future date so fatal to the process?
Because notarizing a document with a future date actively facilitates fraud. It creates a legal paradox where you are testifying that a person appeared before you today to sign a document that claims it was executed tomorrow. It breaks the entire timeline of truth.
That makes sense. And the third element is document completeness. Are there missing pages? Are there glaring blank spaces? And this really goes back to our AR technology discussion from earlier.
It does.
If the language barrier is so severe that you cannot confidently confirm those three things, the name, the date, and completeness, you have to stop the signing immediately.
You absolutely do. Because proceeding at that point is no longer a public service.
Oh.
It is a blind leap of faith that exposes you to that $150,000 lawsuit you mentioned.
Exactly.
Once you clear the big three, your focus must shift entirely to the notarial certificate itself. The certificate is your official set of instructions. It is the only part of the document you actually sign.
And the rules regarding certificates on foreign documents are incredibly rigid. In states like California and Texas, the law explicitly mandates that the notarial certificate itself must be written in English.
You cannot bypass that.
Right. You can't just stamp and sign a jurat that is written in German, even if you fluently speak German.
North Dakota takes this concept to an entirely different extreme, actually. Their jurisdictional rule dictates that a notary cannot proceed unless there is a permanently affixed, accurate English translation of the entire document not just the certificate, but the entire body text attached before the notarization can occur.
Wow. So let's say you are in California. The document is in Spanish, and the printed certificate at the bottom is also in Spanish. You can't sign the Spanish certificate. You have to use a loose English certificate.
Correct.
But you can't just staple a random piece of paper to a legal document and call it a day. There is a very strict protocol to prevent someone from detaching your certificate and stapling it to a completely different fraudulent document later.
The loose certificate protocol is your primary defense against that specific type of fraud. You have to tie the loose certificate inextricably to the original document. You literally take your pen and write, "See attached notarial certificate," directly on the original page right next to the signer's signature.
Then, on your loose English certificate, you have to write a precise description of the document it belongs to.
Exactly.
You write something like, attached to a 3-page power of attorney dated August 9th, 2026, signed by John Doe.
Then you securely staple it, and, crucially, you note the exact use of the loose certificate and the document description in your journal. You create an unbroken chain of evidence.
Okay, I actually want to push back on this entire premise for a second.
Right.
We have a major mantra in this industry. We notarize signatures, not documents. If that is truly our role, why should we care what language the body text is in or if we can read it, as long as we can communicate with the signer and our certificate is in English?
It is a really vital question, and it perfectly highlights the two competing risk frameworks that dictate how a CEO operates in this profession. The perspective you just described is adherence to the ministerial role.
Right.
The argument here is that your statutory duty is strictly limited to verifying identity, witnessing the signature, and executing the certificate. The actual contents of the document are entirely the signer's problem. Under this framework, if you can establish direct communication and read your certificate, your inability to read the body text is totally irrelevant to your duty.
That seems incredibly logical to me. It keeps the notary perfectly in their lane. So what is the counter-argument? Why wouldn't everyone operate that way?
Well, the counter-argument is the risk aversion framework. This framework argues that if you cannot read the document, you cannot truly know if it is complete. You cannot know if it contains hidden instructions asking you, the notary, to perform an unauthorized act.
Oh, I see.
Or worse, you cannot know if the document is being used to facilitate a massive fraud that a plain reading of the text would have immediately exposed to you. Under the risk aversion framework, proceeding means you are assuming professional risk without having all the facts at your disposal.
Which is exactly why the ultimate best practice, universally recommended across almost all jurisdictions, is when in doubt, refer out.
Always.
If you cannot read the document and you feel professionally exposed, the smartest strategic move is to decline the signing and refer the client to a notary who reads that specific language fluently.
But there are obviously scenarios where referring out isn't feasible and you must proceed. This is where the technological ecosystem provides a safety net again.
Yes, the OneSpeak app.
Right. The OneSpeak app is revolutionizing how we handle these language barriers, specifically designed to mitigate this exact liability.
Tell me how OneSpeak actually functions in the field.
It acts as an operational bridge. The OneSpeak app allows you to parse a foreign document using your device's camera. It doesn't translate the complex legal nuances of the contract, but it highlights and translates those key fields, the names, the dates, the structural completeness, so you can confidently satisfy the Big Three examination, even if you don't speak the language.
And it handles the communication barrier too, right?
More importantly, yes, it translates your verbal statutory oaths into the signer's native language in real time. But the real genius is the liability protection.
Because it records it.
Exactly. It records the entire audio session of the translation and the signer's affirmative response. It logs that audio file directly into your electronic journal session.
So if a family member tries to sue you a year later claiming their grandmother didn't understand what she was signing because she didn't speak English, you have cryptographic audio proof that she heard the oath in her native language and consented voluntarily.
It completely insulates you from claims of miscommunication.
It is just the ultimate synthesis of technology protecting the human element of the transaction. All right, we've got to take another quick break, but coming up next, we tackled the W-2 versus 1099 nightmare. Don't go anywhere. Commercial break 2. Welcome back. Let's shift our perspective from the granular details of a single signing table to the macro view of running an entire operation. We really need to talk about the scaling paradox.
Oh, the scaling paradox.
Right. Going from a solo mobile notary handling your own appointments to a multi-agent CEO dispatching an entire fleet of notaries.
It is the natural dream for anyone who achieves operational excellence as a solo agent, but it is a path just heavily littered with regulatory landmines.
I always think about it like building a fast food franchise. You develop a fantastic burger recipe in your hometown, you have great margins, loyal customers, and you totally control the quality.
So far, so good.
Right. So you decide to open a second location in the next county over. But the moment you cross that county line, the local government doesn't just change the health codes. They legally mandate that you use entirely different kitchen equipment, source completely different ingredients, and pay your staff under a completely different tax structure.
That analogy perfectly captures the friction of scaling a notary agency regionally. You are transitioning from a high-margin solo model into a very low-margin, high-volume agency model.
Exactly.
As a solo operator, you do the physical work and you keep 100% of the fee, say $150 to $250 for a loan signing. But in the agency model, you are splitting fees. You secure the order, but you dispatch a subcontractor to do the work.
And after you pay that subcontractor their cut and you cover your software, insurance, and overhead, your gross profit on that file shrinks to maybe $40 or $50.
Which means to make the same amount of money, you have to drastically increase your volume. You need hundreds of files a month.
But capturing that volume usually requires crossing state lines to service national title companies, which immediately exposes you to absolute regulatory chaos.
The state-by-state contrasts are just staggering. We have covered the nuances in prior shows, but look at the sheer financial barriers to entry. Let's say you want to scale your agency into California.
California is a strict escrow state.
Exactly. To operate there, you aren't just registering a business. You are dealing with a mandatory $15,000 surety bond. You are mandated by law to capture physical ink thumbprints in your journal for any deed related to real estate. The compliance overhead is massive.
Then you try to expand to the East Coast, to Virginia. Virginia operates under the Real Estate Settlement Agents Act, or RESA.
And in Virginia, you cannot just dispatch a notary to close a loan. Under RESA, you have to register your agency directly with the Virginia State Bar.
A state bar.
Right. You are subjecting your business accounts to stringent, mandated audits to ensure you aren't mishandling escrow funds. The level of regulatory scrutiny is entirely different from California.
And then you cross into Maryland, which is a title insurance producer state, often referred to as a typic state. To coordinate real estate closings there, your agents are required to hold a specific title producer license, which requires extensive separate testing, and the agency must secure a massive $150,000 fidelity bond.
The rules, the financial barriers, and the liability models change wildly every single time you cross a border.
Right.
But believe it or not, navigating state-specific licensing is just the warm-up.
Right, because the true existential threat to scaling an agency, the thing that will actually bankrupt you, is the W-2 versus 1099 labor classification nightmare.
This is the battlefield where agencies are destroyed by state labor boards on a daily basis. Historically, a notary agency operated on a very simple model. They secured the client, and they hired independent notaries as 1099 contractors to go out and execute the signings.
But states, led aggressively by California, are cracking down violently on gig economy misclassification. They are deploying the ABC test, specifically enshrined in California's AB 5 and later amended by AB 2257.
The ABC test completely flips the burden of proof. It legally presumes that every single worker you hire is your W-2 employee.
Automatically.
It is up to you, the business owner, to prove otherwise by mathematically meeting three strict prongs A, B, and C. If you fail even one prong, you are hit with devastating back taxes, workers' compensation penalties, and labor violations.
Prong A requires that the worker is free from your control and direction. Prong C requires that the worker is customarily engaged in an independently established trade, but Prong B is the absolute killer.
Prong B dictates that the worker must perform work that is strictly outside the usual course of the hiring entity's business.
Which creates an impossible, totally fatal paradox for a notary signing agency. Think about my bakery analogy.
Sorry.
Imagine you own a bakery. You hire people to come in and bake bread, but you tell the IRS, oh, we don't employ bakers, we are just a flour and sugar logistics management company. The people in the aprons actually making the bread, those are independent pastry contractors.
It is an absurd argument. The core of a bakery is making bread. Therefore, the bakers are employees. For a signing agency, the entire core of the business is executing notarizations.
Exactly.
How can you legally claim that a notary signing agent is performing work outside the usual course of your signing agency? You can't. The labor boards will dismantle that argument instantly.
So, to survive, agencies try to utilize a specific carve-out in the law called the business-to-business exemption, or the B2B exemption. But using this exemption is like running a grueling legal obstacle course.
To safely hire a notary as a 1099 contractor under the B2B exemption, you have to meet 12 incredibly strict, distinct criteria. It is not enough that they just have their own notary stamp.
Let's walk through what failing just a few of those 12 criteria looks like. One criterion is that the contractor must have a separate business location from the hiring firm. Another is that they must actively market their own services to the public.
Meaning, if you hire a notary who relies on you for 90% of their income, who doesn't have a website, who doesn't advertise, and who just waits for you to text them assignments, they are not a B2B contractor.
Right.
They're your employee.
There is even a criterion that requires the contractor to have the legal and operational ability to hire their own employees. You cannot just hire someone who works out of their car part-time and legally classify them as a 1099 B2B entity under this test.
The documentation required to prove compliance for all 12 points on every single contractor you dispatch is an administrative mountain. But let's say you do it. Let's say you somehow thread the needle, you audit your fleet, and you build a perfectly compliant network of legitimate, highly qualified B2B contractors.
You immediately run face first into the middleman's dilemma, the death of the non-compete clause.
This is the massive operational vulnerability of using highly qualified independent contractors. You, as the agency CEO, spend years taking clients to lunch, proving your reliability, and building a lucrative relationship with a high-paying title company.
Right, doing all the hard sales work.
Exactly. You then dispatch your shiny, new, legally compliant 1099 contractor to handle a massive commercial closing for that title company.
The contractor does a phenomenal job. The title officer loves them. What is to stop that independent contractor from handing the title officer their own direct business card and saying, hey, next time just call me directly and I'll do it for 20% less than what the agency charges you? They cut you out entirely.
Historically, agencies protected their client list by forcing contractors to sign non-compete and non-solicitation agreements. But in the modern regulatory environment, specifically looking at California's SB 699 non-competes, are completely dead.
And SB 699 goes further than just making them void. They are actively actionable.
That is the truly terrifying part. If you even try to enforce a non-compete clause against a contractor, or if you refuse to give them work because they won't sign one, that contractor can sue you for civil damages and attorney's fees.
Wow.
The courts have decisively ruled that they heavily favor worker mobility over protecting a middleman's client list.
So if a piece of paper can no longer legally protect your client list, how do you keep your contractors from stealing your clients?
You have to fundamentally change your value proposition. You build loyalty not through legal threats, but through superior operational support.
Make them want to stay.
Precisely. You provide the contractor with flawless logistics, prompt payment, and a steady stream of volume that they couldn't possibly generate on their own. You have to make it more profitable for them to work with you than to try and steal the client and manage the billing and liability themselves.
We have outlined a pretty terrifying landscape for scaling an agency. We're going to take our final quick break, and when we get back, we'll talk about how a savvy strategist actually survives and thrives in this environment. We will be right back. Commercial break 3.
And we are back. So before the break, we talked about low margins, complex state laws, aggressive labor audits, and voided contracts. It really begs the question, how do you survive? You survive by stepping out of the low-margin volume game entirely and capturing high-yield, direct-to-business revenue streams right at the start of the week. This is the core philosophy behind Money Making Monday.
I love this concept so much. You cannot build a sustainable enterprise hoping your phone rings on a random Thursday afternoon from someone needing a single auto bill of sale notarized. You have to aggressively control your revenue pipeline. And that starts with understanding how fee structures actually work.
If you look at the statutory fee caps across the country, they're designed for public accessibility, not business profitability. For example, Virginia caps the fee for a standard notarial act at just $10.
$10.
Right. If you are driving 20 minutes to perform a $10 act, you are losing money on gas and time. You will literally starve.
But the state statutes also allow you to structure travel and convenience fees, provided they are agreed upon in advance. That $10 act becomes a highly profitable transaction when you establish a base travel fee that starts at $100 for corporate clients.
Exactly. You leverage specialized B2B routes. You market yourself for emergency after-hours jail signings, which require specialized clearance and hazard protocols, and you start your flat rate at $325.
Wow, yeah.
Or you master the complex international authentication process for apostoles, navigating the Secretary of State protocols, and charge a flat management fee of $350 per document.
But if we are talking about the absolute crown jewel of money-making Monday, the most stable, high-yield revenue stream available, we have to talk about dominating the legacy niche.
Oh, absolutely. The legacy niche is the execution of comprehensive estate planning packages. We're talking about highly sensitive documents, last wills and testaments, revocable living trusts, and durable powers of attorney.
These packages command premium flat fees. You can easily charge $150 to $300 or more per appointment. But it is vital to understand why they command that premium.
The stakes.
Yes, it is because the stakes are monumental.
These documents are designed with one specific purpose: to completely bypass the court system. When a person passes away, a properly executed trust allows their family to transfer wealth and property immediately without going through the grueling, expensive, and public process of probate court.
But because these documents bypass a judge's review, the notary becomes the ultimate singular gatekeeper of fraud right there at the dining room table. Flawless execution is absolutely mandatory.
Let me just illustrate how high the stakes really are. If you are notarizing a trust and you miss a single required initial on page 14, or you use a stamp where the ink is slightly smeared and unreadable, the county recorder will reject that document.
Which is devastating.
If the signer passes away before that error is caught and corrected, you have just plunged a grieving family into years of probate litigation. The wealth they intended to transfer is locked up in court.
Because the consequences of a mistake are so devastating, estate planning attorneys do not want to hire amateurs off a random internet search. They want highly professional, hyper-reliable partners who understand the gravity of the execution.
Which is exactly why the $7 marketing plan is so brilliant. It is a tactical, psychological approach to securing direct contracts with these high-net-worth estate attorneys.
I want to give a huge shout out to Rachel in Colorado here. She wrote to us this week saying she implemented the very first step of this plan.
Awesome.
She spent $1 to buy a custom web domain for her business and $6 to set up a professional Google Workspace.
That $7 investment instantly elevates your professional perception. Think about it from the attorney's perspective. No high-net-worth estate attorney is going to hand over a $10 million trust execution, says someone emailing them from notarygirl88@yahoo.com.
Right. It signals a lack of operational maturity.
Exactly. Rachel immediately positioned herself as a serious institutional entity.
And shout out to Brian in North Carolina, too. He is actively learning and applying these exact B2B networking tactics. He is bypassing the low-margin retail grind entirely and scaling his agency directly by building relationships with law firms. So let's break down the execution. Once you have your professional email, how do you actually get the attorney's attention?
You start by building your Fab 100 list. You use LinkedIn to identify 100 active practicing estate planning attorneys within your target operational radius.
But you do not just drop them all into an automated generic email blast that says, "Hi, I'm a notary, please hire me." That goes straight to the spam folder. You use the 2 and 5 strategy.
The 2 and 5 strategy requires intense discipline. You spend exactly 5 minutes researching their digital footprint. You are looking for 2 respectable, non-autobiographical things about them or their firm.
What does that actually look like in practice?
It means you find out if they just won a local top lawyer award, or you see that their firm just published a really insightful article on recent changes to federal tax law. You find those 2 specific points, and you use them to craft a highly personalized, highly relevant opening email.
Like, "Hi, John, I read your recent article on the new tax exemptions brilliant analysis. I am reaching out because..."
Exactly. It proves you are paying attention to them as professionals, not just treating them as an ATM. But attorneys are busy. They probably won't reply to that first email.
Which is why you strictly adhere to the 314 cadence for your follow-ups. You send that highly personalized initial email. If there is no response, you schedule your first follow-up for exactly 3 days later.
Right.
If it is still crickets, you reach out exactly 1 week after that, and you make your final touch point 4 days after that.
And why that specific timing?
Because it demonstrates professional persistence without crossing the line into being overwhelming or annoying. It shows you are organized and serious.
But the real secret sauce, the psychological flip that makes this whole system work, is the value-first referral tactic. When you finally get that attorney on the phone or in a lively email exchange, you do not ask them for work. You never say, please hire me to do your signings.
Exactly. Requesting a job puts you in a subordinate position immediately. You have to flip the dynamic and position yourself as a peer.
You offer them value first. You tell the attorney, I am actively building a vetted referral network of high-quality financial advisors and CPAs for my clients. I frequently encounter clients who need estate planning services, and I'm looking for top-tier attorneys to add to my referral list. Would you be open to a quick 15-minute chat to see if your firm is a good fit for my network?
It is a masterful approach. You position yourself as a professional who controls a valuable network and can bring them business, rather than a gig worker begging for a handout. You are interviewing them to be on your list.
That is how you secure trust, that is how you secure the legacy niche, and that is how you build a resilient, highly profitable business as we head into 2026.
As we wrap up this 500th broadcast, we have covered a staggering amount of ground today. We have moved from the microscopic view of AR technology spotting blank fields in legal text to the intense macro legal structures of scaling an agency without triggering labor audits, all the way to the psychology of pitching high net worth estate attorneys.
And every single topic we discussed today points to one undeniable truth. This industry is rapidly modernizing, and it is demanding a much higher caliber of professional to safeguard it.
Which leads to a really profound philosophical question we want to leave you with today. As we barrel toward 2026, technology is fundamentally altering how we prove truth and identity. We have augmented reality verifying the structural completeness of our documents. We have blockchain-powered e-journals using bitwise tries to make our records mathematically perfect and cryptographically secure.
The math behind the trust is becoming completely flawless.
Right. But at the exact same time, we are entering an era of incredibly sophisticated deepfakes, AI-generated identities, and synthetic voices. So the question you really have to ponder is this. Does mathematical perfection truly replace the human intuition of a notary looking a signer directly in the eye?
It's a huge question.
When someone sits across from you at a dining room table, sweating, looking nervously at someone off camera, or hesitating just a second too long before they sign a power of attorney, an algorithm cannot feel that tension. A blockchain cannot detect coercion. Will the future of public trust rely more on the cold perfection of the algorithm or on the irreplaceable, intuitive, impartial human witness sitting at the table?
It is a profound question, and how we answer it will define the next decade of this profession.
We want to hear your thoughts on this and on anything else we covered today. Email your questions to Derrick at derrickspruill.com. We will try to answer as soon as possible in our shows.
Your questions and real-world experiences are what keep this show grounded in reality.
Exec producer Derrick Spruill.
Lead writer Marylyn Trotter.
Graphics Eddie Montes Travis.
Music Thomas Bynum.
Produced by Magnificent Workz Business Solutions.
Don't just be listeners of the knowledge, be doers of the knowledge. This is Notary Knowledge. Until next time.
Are you an aspiring notary looking to join millions of other notaries? Start your journey with the Notary Public Foundation by Derrick Spruill. This essential guide provides the step-by-step process to becoming commissioned in your state. Don't stumble into the role. Walk into it with confidence. Grab your copy of the Notary Public Foundation by Derrick Spruill on Amazon today.